Are we ready to start? You guys got the cameras ready? All of you gather here, you'll be happy to know that today I signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes. All right, you guys ready now? My fellow Americans, thank you for sharing your time with me tonight. The subject I want to discuss with you, peace and national security, is both timely and important. Timely, because I've reached a decision which offers a new hope for our children in the 21st century. A decision I'll tell you about in a few minutes. And important because there is a very big decision that you must make for yourselves. This subject involves the most basic duty any president and any people share. The duty to protect and strengthen the peace. The defense policy of the United States is simply this. The United States does not start fights. We will never be an aggressor. We maintain our strength in order to deter and offend against aggression, to preserve freedom and peace. Since the dawn of the atomic age, we've sought to reduce the risk of war by maintaining a strong deterrent and by seeking genuine arms control. Deterrence means simply this: making sure any adversary who thinks about attacking the United States or our allies or our vital interests concludes that the risk to him outweigh any potential gains. Once he understands that, he won't attack. We maintain the peace through our strength. Weakness only invites aggression. The strategy of deterrence has not changed. It still works, but what it takes to maintain deterrence has changed. It took one kind of military force to deter an attack when we had far more nuclear weapons than any other power. It takes another kind of force now that the Soviets, for example, have enough accurate and powerful nuclear weapons to destroy virtually all of our missiles on the ground. During the last several years, a weakening in our security posture has been particularly noticeable in our strategic nuclear forces, the very foundation of our strategy for deterring foreign attacks. A window of vulnerability is opening, one that would jeopardize not just our hopes for serious, productive arms negotiations, but our hopes for peace and freedom. And after one of the most complex, thorough, and carefully conducted processes in memory, I am announcing today a plan to revitalize our strategic forces and maintain America's ability to keep the peace well into the next century. Our plan is a comprehensive one. It will strengthen and modernize the strategic triad of land-based missiles, sea-based missiles, and bombers. I've ordered the completion of the MX missiles. I've directed the Secretary of Defense to revitalize our bomber forces by constructing and deploying some B-100 B-1 bombers as soon as possible. Together with our NATO allies, we decided to deploy new weapons beginning this year as a deterrent to their SS-20s and an incentive to the Soviet Union to meet us in serious arms control negotiations. I am concerned about the effects the nuclear fear is having on our people. The most upsetting letters I receive are from school children who write to me as a class assignment. It's evidence they've discussed the most nightmarish aspects of a nuclear holocaust in their classrooms. Their letters are often full of terror. Well, this should not be so. Our children should not grow up frightened. They should not fear the future. We're working to make it peaceful and free. I believe their future can be the brightest, most exciting of any generation. We must reassure them and let them know that their parents and the leaders of this world are seeking above all else to keep them safe and at peace. I consider this to be a sacred trust. Let us reaffirm America's destiny of goodness and goodwill. Let us work for peace, and as we do, let us remember the lines of a famous old hymn: O God of love, O King of peace, make wars throughout the world to cease. Thank you, Good night, and God bless you.
What did I tell you? That's no television tonight.
Mother.
You know what I said about watching the sky. There is none of that in my household.
How can I not? The Air Force next door certainly do.
Simple. You choose not to. Don't bring them up. We're having meatloaf tonight.
Sounds good.
Why don't you ever invite Claire over for dinner? She's a nice girl.
You don't need to do that. I like eating just the two of us. Besides, I don't really talk with her anymore.
Who do you talk to?
It doesn't matter.
Someday you're gonna have to be more sociable. All you ever do is sit in your room and read.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's odd.
I'm going inside, Mother.
Sir, the report on the bombing exercise over Dayton?
Thank you, sir. This is about the darkest day in American military aviation history. Tommy, take a look at this.
You gotta be shitting me.
You see the abort rates?
These men would have been court-martialed 4 years ago in the Pacific.
Take a look at that accuracy table.
10,000 feet off target! You didn't order them to bomb Pennsylvania.
Average error of 10,090 feet. If they dropped a Hiroshima bomb, it wouldn't even touch the target. No one finished the mission.
How are we gonna bomb Moscow if we're 10,000 feet off target?
Vandenberg sent me here with one mission. Get these men ready to fight. These men are not.
There's only so much we can do when we don't have a bomber that can reach Russia from the continental US, and we're flying in broken World War II leftovers.
I understand, but I am here to get my men ready to fight a war. To err is human. To forgive is not SAC policy. It's not uncommon for men to perform poorly on their first mission. Well, I saw that happen in Germany. But this time is different. We are at war. If we can't get off the ground and hit our targets perfectly, there won't be a second try. We don't get to decide the Air Force budget from Omaha. That's their war to fight over in Washington. We're fighting a different war out here. The defense of the United States.
But we're fighting it with peanuts. How do they expect us to launch an atomic attack when the Atomic Energy Commission won't even let us have the bombs on our own bases? It takes 6 days for them to transfer them over, and when they do, half our B-29s aren't built to carry the bomb.
That's what happens when you let civilians control the U.S. military's ability to wage war. I'll take care of that. I'll talk to Vandenberg.
Sir, our enemy in Russia...
Young man, the Soviets are our adversary. Our enemy is the Navy. They think they're living in 1900. They think they hold the key to the defense of the country. They must have been fighting a different war in the Europe and the Pacific. There's only one way to win wars now, and that's to bomb the shit out of your adversary. Strategic aerial bomb. You gotta hit everything, and you gotta hit it all at once. The industries, the bases, the oil, the rail yards, the vehicles, and you gotta go first.
You gotta hit it with air power.
And the only way we can have an effective air attack is if the Air Force controls all of the planes and bombs to be used against an adversary. The Navy is hindering that mission, and worse, they want it for themselves. They want that money to build a new aircraft carrier. I want training stepped up dramatically. I want a new unit created for assessing bombing readiness and effectiveness. Competitions between wings. Scores for each squadron.
Yes, sir.
And I want reconnaissance flights over Russia. We can't bomb them if we don't know where to hit, and I want to keep a closer eye on them.
What if one of the planes gets shot down?
Well, maybe if we do this thing right, one day we start World War III.
Right, sir. Generals, I have convened this meeting of the Joint Chiefs because we've got to resolve this carrier matter. Secretary Johnson.
The $14 billion figure for the military budget is final. I have called you here because we are going to decide on the matter of the aircraft carrier today. I would like a vote from all of you. You all get to voice your opinions. General Vandenberg, you start.
Mr. Secretary, I vote no. There's no evidence that an aircraft carrier of this size will provide any new military usefulness, and it will be a sitting duck for Soviet forces to attack while it sits off their coast. On the contrary, it is essential that more money be put towards the new B-36 bomber, which will give us the essential ability to strike the Soviet Union from our bases here at home, as well as in Western Europe and the Pacific. The Navy is taking precious defense dollars for its second-rate Air Force that will make coordinating our strategic air offensives impossible. Let the Navy do what it does best: anti-submarine warfare, sea control, mines, and let us handle the strategic bombing.
Admiral Denfeld.
Mr. Secretary, please don't let them scuttle the Navy. The new carrier is essential to national security, and relying on the Air Force to defend the country is not only foolish and misguided. We have never relied on one service for national security, and we have been the nation's first line of defense for the history of our entire country. And now a new Air Force that hasn't existed for 2 years wants to wipe us out? A force as terrible as the atomic bomb cannot be entrusted to the Air Force alone. They'll use it to randomly bomb cities and murder civilians, just like they did in the last war.
Our plan is not to actively target civilians.
General, is the United States for or against the mass murder of non-combatants? Will you answer that?
General Bradley.
Mr. Secretary, 1 year ago I supported this carrier, as I'm sure you all remember, but I agree with General Vandenberg. The Navy's primary mission in our modern situation, as we agreed at our conference last year, is to protect lines of communication and raw materials and routes. It appears to me that the purpose of this carrier can only be seen as an attempt by the Navy to enter the realm of strategic air operations. Besides, the carrier is too expensive. I oppose.
Thank you, Generals. That'll be all. Mr. President, my recommendation is you cancel the project and that the newly freed up funding be directed to the Air Force.
Finally, someone who makes decisions. It is done. We've got to put these petty matters behind us and get to the important business of defending the country. We're really putting a lot into those men at SAC, aren't we?
What other choice do we have? We don't have the money to put millions of troops back into Europe after we just sent them home. Besides, the American people wouldn't let us. The bomb is our cheapest option to oppose those Soviets.
I suppose, but I don't think we ought to use this thing unless we absolutely have to. You've got to understand that this isn't a military weapon. It is used to wipe out women and children and unarmed people. We've got to treat this thing differently from rifles and cannons and ordinary things like that.
I understand. Thank you, Mr. President.
Hello, Mother.
Emma! How was school today?
Good. I got my arithmetic test back and got good marks on it.
Wonderful.
I'm going over to Donna's house tomorrow after school, if that's okay with you, Mother.
That's fine with me. She's a nice girl. Her mother is nice too. I haven't met her father, though.
He works at the Air Force Base. Some nights he has to stay around longer, so Mrs. Caldecott takes care of her on her own most of the time.
I know the task well.
Mother, what do they do over there at the base?
That is the Strategic Air Command. That's their headquarters right over there. Right here outside of Omaha. Their job is to keep our country safe from those who might want to do us harm or attack us.
Like the Russians?
Yes, like the Russians.
Everybody's been talking about the Russians at school. The teachers say that they have the atom bomb now, too.
That's right. Those men over there in those planes make sure that they won't ever have to use it against us.
Could they?
Not with the Air Force standing in their way.
Because the teachers showed us a new drill to do if the Russians bombed us in school today, Mom.
Really?
Yes. They call it duck and cover.
Duck and cover?
Yes. We duck under our desks and cover ourselves with anything we have, like our school books, duck and cover. When you see the flash, you're supposed to go to the nearest shelter or building and duck and cover.
That's good that they're keeping you prepared.
Do you think it could come without warning?
What do you mean?
They said the Russians might be able to drop a bomb on us before there's any time for a warning. All we would know is the flash. Do you think that's likely?
Oh, I doubt it. I'm sure they would know ahead of time. Plus, with the Air Force right here, how could you be scared?
Are you sure?
Of course. That's what those men train for day in and day out. They would protect us.
I hope it would work.
What?
Duck and cover.
Of course it works. Don't you get smart on your school teachers. Everything they teach you is for your own good. If they say that's what you should do, then you better do it.
Yes, Mother. They say they're going to start doing drills with the sirens every month. Without any warning, we'll have to duck and cover.
It's good practice. And good exercise too, I'm sure.
Donna says if her dad was home when the siren went off, he would have to run to the base to hop in his plane to go shoot down the Russians.
Yes, a brave pilot like your father.
Would Dad have shot down the Russian planes if he were here?
Oh, certainly. He'd go right up to that communist plane and blow it out of the sky. He'd save the town, save the country. He'd be a hero.
A hero?
Yes, he was a hero.
I lost another tooth at school today, Mom.
Oh, one of your last baby teeth. My little girl is growing up. Maybe we could donate it.
What?
Someone at the hospital was saying that they're starting a scientific research using teeth to see if they contain radiation.
Radiation from what?
You know, all the tests.
Oh.
I think it would be a very good idea. Think about it. You get to contribute to the science for all the children of the country.
Where would we go here if a bomb came?
We'd probably just find a corner in the house and duck and cover there.
And we'd be safe?
Yes, we'd be safe. Don't worry so much.
I'm going inside, Mother. I've got some history school work to do. We're learning about the First World War.
Very important. Go, run along now.
You read this. The Navy is shooting itself in the ass. Did we have one of ours running their PR? Now they're making everybody testify before Congress.
We even got the Army on our side. Listen to this from General Bradley. Our Navy is an open rebellion against civilian control of the military. Our military forces are one team, in the game to win regardless of who carries the ball. There's no time for fancy Dans who won't hit the line with all they have on every play unless they can call the signals. Each person on this team, whether he shines in the spotlight of the backfield or eats dirt on the line, must be an All-American.
Incredible. What a day for the country! Finally, the public sees the Navy for the danger they are, and we get our intercontinental bomber. The necessity of strategic air power is clear to all.
Sir, the report on the bombing exercise?
Thank you. Not too bad. A lot better than Dayton. Take a look.
Average error, 4,600 feet.
A lot better than 10,000, but I want 3,000 feet accuracy.
I'll get there, Kurt.
The Strategic Air Command is 75% effective.
General, the latest war plan directives from the Joint Chiefs.
Thank you. What is this nonsense? This isn't a plan. This is meaningless. It's too vague.
We don't know where half these places are. How does he expect us to find ball bearing factories and oil refineries without getting shot down while we're searching?
A plan to bomb the Soviet Union involves bombing the Soviet Union. It's that simple.
Sir, these have been sent by General Vandenberg.
Yes, I know. I didn't get to be commander of SAC by listening to every misguided directive Washington sent me. Uncle Tommy, you were there in the Pacific with me. 1945. You remember. Hell, you flew the lead bomber.
Yeah, we bombed the shit out of those Japs.
I was put in charge of the 21st Bomber Command in the Marianas in January 1945. The weather was cloudy, and high-altitude bombing like we did so well in Germany just wouldn't get it done for Japan. Joint Chiefs sent me a target list of specific industrial plants and facilities, but that did me no good since we had no real visual on Japan. So I made the decision, not General Arnold, not Secretary Stimson, that we would take a new approach. I looked in the World Almanac for the largest Japanese cities, and I made a list. I ordered the gunners and any excess weight taken off those B-29s, and we loaded those planes with as many bombs as could fit. We flew in at low altitude at night. I always flew the lead plane, and we started taking out Japanese cities one by one, starting with Tokyo. We crippled them.
Set the city on fire. We burned a giant X right through the town.
And it was only after we bombed dozens of cities that General Arnold came to the Pacific and asked when the war would be over. My men gave me the date we would run out of targets to hit. September 1st. That was the date I gave the general. They put me in charge for a reason, to shorten the war and end it before we'd have to invade. I succeeded. My plan are the way the Strategic Air Command will fight. You still have my plans, right?
Yes, sir. Right here. SAC Emergency War Plan. We will use the entire stockpile of atomic bombs in a single massive attack on the Soviet Union. 133 atom bombs on 70 cities within 30 days.
And that is our plan. I don't care what anyone else tells me. They're not in Omaha. This is my command, and I'm in charge of how we go to war. Our only limitation is our arsenal.
General, they're only getting more and more insistent on not targeting cities directly. That civilian who was here last week, Bernard Brody from the Rand Corporation, he strongly encouraged our targeting to be more systematic, more effective.
All right, let me see the targeting map. You see this bomb aimed right at the Kremlin? As of this moment, this bomb will be targeted half a mile further south, so it will damage both the Kremlin and, here, this electric power plant. That should appease them.
What about all the people in Moscow also in range?
People in Moscow? That's a bonus. That's bonus damage we can do in addition to hitting the points they want us to. How's that for strategic?
Bonus! The more we kill, the more we win.
And General, I've just been in a meeting with the Secretary of Defense's office.
Yes?
You're gonna like this. It sounds like they're gonna give you a brand new bomb. A bomb that's so goddamn big, it'll change the whole ball game.
Well, now they're talking.
It's still under development, of course, but the project is well underway, and they expect to test the thing within a year or two. A hydrogen bomb. Hundreds of times more powerful.
Well, that'll make our targeting problem a hell of a lot easier.
Bigger bombs!
Generals, bombing doesn't seem to be having much of an effect in Korea, and the Chinese have joined the fight. General Vandenberg, what do you think we should do?
Mr. President, I'm not sure North Korea acted alone in starting this whole thing. They must have had a go-ahead from Russia before launching this attack.
You think so?
I agree, Mr. President. The Soviets are trying to divert all of our resources and attention to the east while we allow them to take free hand in Europe. They might try to take Berlin while we're looking away.
How do you recommend we respond?
Well, if we started hitting the bases and material across the Yalu River into China, that would help. If need be, we could then destroy all of Manchuria and the principal cities of China, if we utilized the full power of the U.S. Air Force. Mr. President, we're too focused on Korea. This could be a prelude to a larger war the Soviets might start by, say, next summer. Every day the Soviets get to build more atomic bombs, we become weaker.
What are you suggesting?
I'm not making any specific recommendations on this, Mr. President. We're already bombing Korea. But every day this war drags on, the Russians get stronger.
Are you suggesting we launch a preemptive war against the Soviet Union?
I am not making any recommendations on the matter.
We must not get dragged into thinking of the atomic bomb as our only means of retaliation. There's no substitute for boots on the ground to deter and focus the enemy.
It's not so much about the use of the weapons as the threat of their use. I think we should seriously draw up plans for an air offensive including atomic weapons into Manchuria should the war expand beyond Korea.
What do you think the odds of this thing widening are?
Very high, sir.
Do you think the American people are ready for that?
Of course they are. The American people will be ready for anything essential to the survival of this country, which is what is at stake here, as you well know, Mr. President.
I see. Thank you, generals.
This is a test. For the next 60 seconds, this station will conduct a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is only a test. This is a test. The broadcasters in your area, in voluntary cooperation with the FCC and other authorities, have developed this system to keep you informed in the event of an emergency. If this had been an actual emergency, you would have been instructed where to tune in your area for news and official information. This station serves the Omaha, Nebraska area. This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Looks like it's going to storm.
That's what the forecast said. I heard a severe thunderstorm warning on the radio. Could be tornadoes.
I doubt that. We haven't had tornado in Omaha in years.
It could happen. We do live in Tornado Alley.
And I have for 35 years longer than you.
What if there was one?
Tornado?
Yeah. What would we do?
Well, yeah. We would go down to the tornado shelter right there, like I've mentioned before.
It's been a long time since you brought it up.
Well, we haven't had a tornado in a long time. We never needed to use it.
How long have we had that shelter?
What do you mean? We've had it as long as you've been alive.
No. I mean, has it always been there?
No. Actually, your grandmother built it.
When?
She built it in the early 1960s, before you were born.
She just decided to build one?
Yeah, she always did like to be prepared. She decided the basement wasn't enough and that we ought to have our own shelter.
She just built it for storms, right?
What do you mean?
I mean, it wasn't meant to be a fallout shelter.
No, of course not. She didn't care about that. Kate, how many times have I told you that that topic is not to be discussed here? With no exceptions.
Do you know where we live, Mother?
Yes, my house, which I set the rules for. So there will be no discussion of it. End of conversation.
I still don't get why they didn't let our planes go all out right at the start of the Korean conflict.
Because they're pussies. Because they love to sit on their ass and watch while Americans die.
We could have ended that war in weeks if they just let me drop incendiaries on North Korea right from the jump.
Oh no, that would have been immoral! That would have been immoral! Oh.
Suddenly they're experts on the morality of war. Letting thousands of Americans and allies die needlessly in a war we could have won. That's immoral. That's what they don't get up in Washington. We end up killing 20% of the North Korean population within 3 years of bombing campaigns. Of course, not all at once at the start. 20%. Nobody seems to mind that at all. But to kill a couple people right at the start of the war, whoa, that's immoral. We can't stomach that.
We should have dropped the bomb on him.
We could have won even without atomic weapons if we had just started at the get-go. This is what I don't get about how people think about the atom bomb. The attack on Tokyo killed more people than either Hiroshima or Nagasaki. That was incendiary, not atomic. I suppose if we had lost the war, I would have been tried as a war criminal. Fortunately, we were on the winning side. You know what immoral is? To use less force than is necessary to win the war as fast as you can, because then it drags on and hundreds of thousands of your men die. It is the height of immorality not to do everything in your power to prevent that. I see no more reason for a delegation of Japanese maidens who are injured in Hiroshima or Nagasaki coming over here to protest than I can for a throng of German civilians to demonstrate in front of the White House for survivors on the attack of London. It's just war. A weapon is a weapon. It really doesn't make much difference how you kill a man.
You're damn right.
You gotta hit him, and you gotta hit him fast. You gotta hit him so hard they don't have the chance to fight back.
No room for pussies. Like the court-martials in Japan. It was smart of you to threaten the court-martials, Kurt.
I expect that kind of stuff from my men, especially my officers. Always have. If you're too weak to fly, if you don't have the fine moral fiber and character demanded of a commissioned officer, you're facing the courts. That's the only way to handle it. I hate this ceasefire business. It's a half-measure. We ought to end this war once and for all. I would drop a few bombs on China, Manchuria, and southeastern Russia. In these poker games, Korea, Berlin, all we ever do is call the bets. We never raise the ante. We ought to try sometime.
Sure. Our latest intelligence estimates on the Soviet threat. We've been monitoring Soviet aircraft factories and demonstrations, and based on our information, the Soviet Union may have 500 intercontinental bombers by 1961.
500?
Yes, sir. Which is about the number we projected they'd need if we really wanted to launch an attack against targets in the US. Unless we get more by then, we'll be vulnerable.
Do you really think those numbers are accurate?
To the best of our knowledge, sir. We must be ready to match any Soviet threat.
Yes.
And you know what else, General?
Yes?
The more bombers we say they have, the more we can ask for.
Thank you, sir.
Now, once in a while, I get a letter from some impatient person asking, why don't we get it over with? Why don't we issue an ultimatum, make all-out war, drop the atomic bomb? For most Americans, the answer is quite simple. We are not made that way. We are a moral people. Peace is our goal with justice and freedom. We cannot, of our own free will, violate the very principles that we are striving to defend. The whole purpose of what we are doing is to prevent World War III. Starting a war is no way to make peace. But if anyone thinks that just this once bad means can bring good ends, then let me remind you of this. We are living in the 8th year of the atomic age. We are not the only nation that is learning to unleash the power of the atom. A third world war might dig the grave, not only of our communist opponents, but also of our own society, our world as well as theirs. Starting an atomic war is totally unthinkable for rational men.
Generals, I want to know what you think of this proposal I was just handed. An Air Force general proposes that in view of the growing Soviet arsenal and threat and our growing vulnerability, that we make an ultimatum. Give the Soviet Union 2 years to negotiate with the United States and agree on terms, or, after 2 years, face a general war. Now, if this arms race business is going to go on indefinitely, I do wonder if we have a duty to future generations to take action now. I want to know what you think.
I can't believe that's a serious proposal.
Every day we sit here on our laurels, the Soviets get stronger. If they choose to launch a surprise attack, as I know they're actively planning for, they could decimate our ability to respond.
If we really did this, if we destroyed a nation like that, it would violate every principle this country was founded upon. Don't you agree, Admiral?
It's not so much the idea of attacking first. It's more of our plans, our targeting, our all-out mass murder we call a war plan. Not only is it wrong, militarily it makes no sense. We should be focusing on military targets and supporting our ground troops. We shouldn't even be focusing on going after their cities first. And what if we don't get everything we need? If we go after their cities first, they'll go after ours with no hesitation. But they might not if we limit ourselves.
The United States should never hesitate to go first.
I don't agree with preemptive war, General, but we simply need to have more options to use these weapons than just one all-out, no-holds-barred attack. And we should not rely on strategic bombing to do all the fighting.
I agree with Max. Hoyt, tell General LeMay to be a little more imaginative out there in Omaha with his plans.
You'd have to hire Walt Disney if you want Curtis LeMay to be imaginative.
That's just his problem. His imagination is too big. We are the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States military. Mr. President, we simply must ensure that our guidance is taken seriously by the men who will carry out the mission. I'm sure even you would agree with that, Hoyt.
I do, Max.
That will be all, gentlemen. John,
Yes, Mr. President.
I've been getting reports from SAC that the Soviets might be building 500 bombers. Do you believe this business about a bomber gap?
Sir, the CIA estimates are considerably smaller than what SAC is projecting, and we trust our numbers. Remember, we have intelligence gathering methods, as you know, Mr. President, that they don't know about in Omaha.
That's what I thought. I see no real way to get out of this thing scot-free. All we have that matters is a deterrent. We have got to make sure this thing never happens.
Mr. President, massive retaliation is the policy we have declared, and it is your only option if we don't want to spend millions on troops in Europe.
We must plan to win, but this business seems to be getting out of my hands. If we aren't going to win, I don't want to lose any worse than we have to. These men want weapons to destroy every conceivable target, all over the world, 3 times over. We've got to start thinking about what happens when we have passed the limits of what human beings can endure.
Emma, how was your day?
Did you hear it today?
Hear what? The siren? Yes, the whole city did. It was a drill. Did you duck and cover at school?
Yes, Mother.
All the nurses did at the hospital. Everybody in Omaha did, except for the doctors in the middle of surgery.
Why didn't they tell us?
What do you mean?
They didn't warn us before the siren this time.
Oh, well, you know, they're just trying to keep us prepared. There won't be a lot of time for a warning and an attack.
Did you think it was real?
Oh, no. Of course not. The Russians wouldn't dare.
There was a plane.
Plane?
During the siren, a plane flew right over us.
Oh. Well, that must have been from the airbase.
I thought it was the Russians.
Now that's just silly. We do live next door to the Strategic Air Command, you know.
It seems like they do it every other week now.
They want us to be ready, living so close to the SAC headquarters.
I bet they've got us right in their target sites. They're giving us dog tags.
Dog tags?
To identify us.
That's not a bad idea.
I don't like it.
It's just like your cross necklace. You wear it at all times because it keeps you safe. Of course, dog tags don't make you closer to God or identify you as a Catholic, but it's the same idea.
Donna said they sent her dad overseas. She doesn't even know where he is. Super secret. Do you think it has something to do with Korea?
Oh, I don't know. We have military bases all over the world now, you know. We do so Nazism and communism won't spread.
She said she doesn't even know what his mission is. I think he probably would be one of the men to drop the bomb.
You don't know that.
We would only do it if the Russians attacked us first, right?
Yes, that's right. We're not monsters, Emma. Not like those men across the sea. So long as we stand strong, it won't happen. Emma, sometimes you have to talk tough and stand strong in order to get your way in this world.
I know it. Boys try to steal my lunch all the time, but they never get close. Donna and I stand guard.
That's my girl.
I don't like the siren.
The siren is good. The siren is what warns us. If we didn't have the siren, we would have no way of knowing. The siren is your friend.
But it might happen without warning. Just the flash.
Oh, that's not likely at all. I'm sure the Air Force is keeping a close eye on them. Don't worry so much, Emma.
They keep building more and more planes. They probably keep building bombs too.
We've got to act strong. If the Russians know we have enough bombs to destroy them, they won't touch us. It's that simple.
I just wish we didn't have to do the siren all the time.
You'll get used to it. It's just another part of life now, just like the bomb. Nothing special or odd about it. Just another part of life.
Okay, Mother.
This Sputnik satellite, sir, this is it. It's clear as day. This is their commie way of saying we're going to annihilate you, and we're not going to do it with bombers, we'll do it with missiles. How do you put a satellite into orbit? You launch it on a missile, an ICBM. With their resources, there's no way they could build hundreds of bombers and missiles. They gotta choose one.
Where does that put our estimates?
SAC intelligence says the Soviets were building 500 bombers by 1961, but as of this moment, sir, the latest figures. The Soviet Union will have 500 ICBMs by 1961. They're building them like sausages, just like Khrushchev said.
Yeah, which means we need 2,000 of them.
Sir, of course this means we're going to be vulnerable.
We won't ever be vulnerable if we get the first strike in. If my reconnaissance planes see them massing for an attack, I'm going to knock the shit out of them.
We've got to prepare now. Kurt, what do you think of this? Right now, we're sitting ducks here on our runways. We need a third of our planes on 15-minute alert at all times, ready to go and get them. We also need a continuous airborne alert. What if we had a certain percentage of our B-52s off the ground at all times, fully armed with the nuclear weapons, flying around at all times? Not only would we be ready to fuck them up at any moment, but the men get more flying hours. Plus, we wear the planes out faster, so they gotta give us more.
Well, you heard all that?
Yes, sir.
I want it done.
Yes, sir.
Good work, Tommy.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, the latest from the Navy.
Yes.
Sir, we won't have time to worry about the Russians if the Navy gets to us first. This new Polaris nuclear missile they want to carry on their submarines? They're telling everyone with ears that these things are more survivable than our bombers since they're underwater, invulnerable, not reliant on bases that can be targeted and hit. And they're getting attention. Politicians, the press, they're all coming for us. They're telling the world their subs can replace SAC as America's nuclear deterrent, and they can hit the same urban targets as that we're aiming at.
Fuck.
They came up with something to get us back.
If they get their way with this thing, we're through. We're fucked. What are we gonna do, Kurt? We can't let them jeopardize the country.
Sir, we may have a way out. The boys over at RAND have been developing a response.
Go on.
They're pushing the idea of only targeting military assets instead of going after cities. They call it counterforce. The argument is that if you only plan to hit military targets in a first strike, then you can hold back a force to threaten their cities if they retaliate.
Men don't hold back. Why do they want us to restrain ourselves, huh? Why are they so concerned with us saving their lives? The whole idea is to kill the bastards. It's a pissing contest. You gotta use everything you've got.
They turned the tables on us. Last week the admirals were crazy for this no cities business, but once they realized they could beat us at our own game, they switched to cities. Bombing cities is only immoral to them if the Air Force does it. Don't worry, Tommy. So they want us to stay away from cities. So we hit everything else. The only way to be certain is if we destroy everything. Say you want to take out the tanks. It would be stupid to get tank columns without getting the factories that make the parts, the firms that make the tanks, the roads they would take our forces. You've got to cover all the angles of this sort of thing. That's me. By the way, Tommy, I know we have a new chief of staff.
Yes, sir. General White. Good man.
I've been talking with him for a few months now. He agrees with my view that the Air Force has got to have all the country's bomb under her command. Thank God. He says they're eager at the Pentagon and the White House to create a new plan, a new organization to create one big nuclear targeting plan for all of the military instead of leaving it to the services. See where I'm going?
I'm listening.
He says this plan would need to have a new commander to oversee the whole organization. The new plan. Well, tell me, what command has all the newest computers? The technology, the staff, the personnel to coordinate such an operation?
The Strategic Air Command.
If we can't stop the Navy from building their missile, we'll just put it under our command.
What does this have to do with us pulling out from the cities?
That's where we make our case. If they can target cities more effectively than us, then we've got to focus on what they can't do. Those missiles are inaccurate. Couldn't hit a beached whale. That's where SAC comes in.
If we publicly say that our primary mission is to attack military assets and attacking cities is secondary, and we focus on the fact that we're the only ones that can do that, then we have a case.
But that goes against every solid rule of war. I mean, every rule of strategic bombing. Hit them all.
Relax, Tommy. It's just what we say. We'll still have the computers. We'll still be in control. Nobody else has access to those plans. Nobody else will have the final word.
We'll still get our bonus. Don't you worry. All we gotta say is we're targeting the military bases. Hit them with high-yield bombs that release mass radiation, and you still get your bonus damage.
Yeah, you gotta have the bonus. Okay, you gotta hit the fuckers in the cities.
The Strategic Air Command is ready for war. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Mr. President, here's our report. Admiral Burke and I have conducted a joint Army-Navy investigation of SAC targeting practices and are absolutely appalled at what we found.
Mr. President, we as the Joint Chiefs have clearly communicated our targeting objectives to SAC. What we found is excess and overkill of an astonishing level.
Their plan would result in far more damage than the necessary, and the fallout and radiation from such an attack would not only be unnecessary and sky high, but put our allies at risk.
And these plans for their Sunday punch first strike, the only ones they have. If the Soviets managed to attack first, we would have no retaliatory plans in place.
This is unacceptable, and this is why you are here. Right now, there is no one single plan for how the United States would use nuclear weapons in a war. SAC has their plan, the Navy has their Polaris missiles and bombers, and the Army has their artillery and missiles. It is disorganized and unnecessary and sloppy. We need one single integrated operational plan and target list with options for how we fight a nuclear war. General White has a proposal.
That's right, Mr. President. There's no need for all the services to individually target the same spot. I'm proposing the creation of a joint strategic targeting planning staff, which will be tasked with the creation of a single integrated operating plan. It would include officers from all of the armed forces to be headquartered and under the supervision of the Strategic Air Command at Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska. The SAC commander will oversee the plans, being that, SAC is the only organization with the technology and expertise in the nuclear field to conduct such an operation.
This is reckless, Mr. President. If we delegate all of the authority to one commander, then the Joint Chiefs have lost all of our power over war operations. We'll be at the mercy of SAC. SAC will forever set the budgets, the requirements, the weapons. The more targets that SAC come up with, the more money and weapons they'll need. And we don't even need SAC. If we just had 45 subs and only 30 deployed, we could hit 230 targets, which would be enough to knock the Russians out of the war.
Every gallon of oil we don't bomb in Russia is used by a bomber to attack the United States. And your intelligence is wrong. We're facing a vulnerability gap of proportions this country has never seen. They're building thousands of missiles, and you only want to hit 230 of them.
Mr. President, if this becomes our plan for general war, any war with the communists, then we are talking about the possible annihilation of both sides. We are not planning for war. Wars are fought with clear objectives and options beyond mass murder. We are worst-case scenario planning. We all talk about these weapons being unusable, and here we are trying to talk ourselves into using them.
Don't be so soft, Max. You're speaking like a woman. It's not our position to think of anything other than victory for the United States. That's the only thing we can allow to enter our minds.
I am not getting soft, General. I am being realistic and only want to win a war that will not needlessly kill tens of millions.
General Taylor, even you must admit there is no way to fight a war if the branches won't even share their plans with each other. We need one nuclear plan. Your case rests on the idea that the barbarians over there value human life as much as we do. If the Russians were willing to risk a life or death struggle against us, how can we not be willing to do the same? Our only option is to have a striking force in the air immediately.
If we give everything over to SAC, then it's all over. This is just like communism taking over the country. A small minority, a small group of individuals holding America's security hostage.
If all of you had cooperated on matters of national defense years ago, we wouldn't have needed to do this.
They're going to destroy the United States.
I approve of this plan, General White. Tom, see to it that SAC is ready to handle the operation as soon as possible.
You're making a terrible mistake, Mr. President.
I have no other choice. We need order and unity on these matters. This is too serious to leave to petty disputes.
You're damn right it is.
This meeting is over. Thank you, generals.
Are the Russians gonna bomb us from the satellite?
No, Sputnik can't bomb us.
It's all anybody is talking about. Have you noticed that the planes have been taking off more and more?
I don't pay that close attention.
I swear the planes are taking off every few hours now. One comes down, another goes up.
We've got to be ready at all times. I read a story in the paper today that there might be a missile gap, that they might have hundreds more than us.
I wonder what they're thinking over there at the base, what they're really planning. Donna tells me her dad goes to the base more and more now. Sometimes they make him sit on high alert for 24 hours a day. What are they waiting for? I don't like the sky anymore.
What do you mean?
The Russians can reach us from space. They can come in their planes at any time, no warning. The sky is the danger.
What are you talking about?
It's the sky. Sometimes at night I think about running far away, trying to get away from the sky, away from any bases or anything.
We control the skies. The Air Force controls the sky.
I don't like the sky, Mother. I don't want it. Please, Mother, can't we just go someplace there isn't any sky?
Don't worry, Emma. The sky can't hurt you. the spring dance coming up?
Yes.
Do you have a date?
I'm not going.
You're not?
I don't think so.
When I was your age, I had dates to all the dances. I used to love going. Why don't you want to go?
I don't really have an interest in dances.
You used to be a lot more social. And you aren't eating as much. Is there something wrong?
No. I'm fine.
You sure?
Yeah. Caldecots are building a bomb shelter.
Really?
Yes.
Good for them.
You think that's good?
We've got to be ready. I don't think that a war is likely in the slightest, but we've got to make sure our world and community is ready to survive if it does.
Maybe they know something the rest of us don't.
They're just being good citizens. Maybe we should.
What?
Yes. Not because I think war is likely, but we've got to be strong and resilient and send the signal to our neighbors and town that there is still a world worth saving after a war.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Why not?
I just don't.
You don't want to be prepared?
I just don't want that in our backyard.
I don't understand why you wouldn't want to build a shelter. Sure, we have a basement, but we want the best chance possible to help our community rebuild if there were such a thing to happen. I know you might think our house is secure enough, but it might not be.
You're not doing this out of fear.
Absolutely not. Building a bomb shelter is about the absence of fear, about living free of fear. If nothing happens, as nothing will, we're ready. If something does, we're ready. And we can help rebuild.
Rebuild? I don't want to talk about this.
Okay, we can think about it some more. I really think that you should find a date to the dance. There's no boys you think you could ask?
No. There's no one.
Well, I don't know about that.
I do. I'm going to my room, Mother.
Okay, Emma. Cheer up, won't you?
Have you heard the news?
War starts at midnight?
I've been nominated as Air Force Chief of Staff.
Congratulations, sir.
SAC will be in your hands, Tommy. You will take over my command. You will be responsible for the defense of the United States.
I'll do my best, sir. Oh, I doubt anyone can run it better than you, Kurt. I can't wait to hear about Kennedy pissing his pants with fright in those Joint Chiefs meetings.
The new Secretary of Defense is coming out to Omaha next week. You're going to brief him on the new PSYOP. I'll be gone by then. Be sure to show him what SAC is all about. This whole new administration is filled with a bunch of soft civilians.
They call themselves the whiz kids, full of fancy ideas and systems analysis and a whole bunch of shit. They dare to think they know more about war than us. Would things be much worse if Khrushchev himself was Secretary of Defense?
They want to walk all over our plans. Tell him what we're really doing. Dare him to change it.
He's gonna shit himself. We're gonna miss having you out here, you know. You're the best CO there is.
Take care of this place while I'm gone. Don't let the Navy have their way with this new PSYOP plan.
Oh, they won't get near it. Come back and see the place anytime.
Mr. President, the report on the new PSYOP, I was just at a briefing in Omaha.
My God. It's even worse than it was before. I failed the country. I should have never let them get away with this. I suppose I don't have a choice in the matter. We have to go ahead with this PSYOP, otherwise the branches fight for themselves instead of the country. Thank you. "3 days from now, after half a century in the service of our new country, I shall lay down the responsibilities of office as, in traditional and solemn ceremony, the authority of the presidency is vested in my successor. This evening I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell, and to share a few final thoughts with you, my countrymen. Down the long lane of history yet to be written, America knows that this world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate, and be, instead, a proud confederation of mutual trust and respect. Disarmament, with mutual honor and confidence, is a continuing imperative. Together, we must learn how to compose difference, not with arms, but with intellect and decent purpose. Because this need is so sharp and apparent, I confess that I lay down my official responsibilities in this field with a definite sense of disappointment. As one who has witnessed the horror and the lingering sadness of war, as one who knows that another war could utterly destroy the civilization which has been so slowly and painfully built over thousands of years, I wish I could say tonight that a lasting peace is in sight. Happily, I can say that war has been avoided. Steady progress toward our ultimate goal has been made, but so much remains to be done. As a private citizen, I shall never cease to do what little I can to help that world advance along that road.
Mr. Secretary.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Daniel Ellsberg from the RAND Corporation. I'm the one who did those studies on nuclear weapons, command and control in the Pacific.
Ah, yes. Those have been very useful to us. You're a privileged man, you know. Not many people in the world have seen as much of our nuclear plan as you have.
I'm very aware, Mr. Secretary, that's what I wanted to ask you about. I have a question I would like addressed to the Joint Chiefs, if you'd be willing to relay it.
What is it?
I want to know how many people would die in our plans. I would like to know how many people will die in the Soviet Union and Communist China if our nuclear war plans are carried out as intended, as well as the rest of Europe and the Pacific.
I will forward it.
Thank you.
Did you hear
About what?
about the Korean airliner?
We don't talk about politics in this household.
It's not politics, it's world affairs. The Russians shot it down.
It's not of any concern to us.
I saw 2 take off last night. There's more movement than usual.
Stop! That's the last there will be on the subject.
There's going to be an important movie on TV next week.
What movie?
The day after.
If you watch that movie, you will be grounded in this house for a week.
A whole week?
A whole week. Hell, since you love being in your room so much, I'll make it 2 weeks. 2 weeks, no television, grounded.
People need to see it.
It's a load of junk. And as a matter of fact, I heard from some of the other parents that your school sent out a letter to parents advising their children not to watch.
No, they didn't. I never got a letter.
Huh. Donna Caldecott did. And she showed it to me. I think you're lying.
It's not like you had to sign and return it or something.
I do not like being lied to. If there is a letter from your school addressed to me, I am to receive that letter. Am I clear?
The whole country is going to watch it. It's all anyone at school is talking about.
You guys don't have anything better to talk about? Why can't you just focus on the great things that are going on? You're not making any plans for Halloween? Your generation has more than we ever did and you're just depressed. You haven't had friends over in years.
There's a reason for that.
Whatever happened to that Helen girl?
She has a boyfriend now. We don't really talk anymore.
Do you talk to anyone?
Sure, I talk to people.
Yet you have much better grades than I did because you do nothing but sit and study.
All of my friends are gonna watch the movie.
I thought you didn't have any friends.
I have friends. A lot of them think it's cool. No different than seeing a disaster movie.
It's a waste of time. I don't want you watching that movie.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Secretary.
Good day, General.
Have we got a show for you? Take a seat. This is the country's plan for war with the Soviet Union and China. Any armed conflict with the two countries, any, will play out like this. Our first wave is launched by our fighter force based here in the Pacific region stationed on carriers. These are under the control of Pacific Command. This wave will especially focus on knocking out the Soviet air defenses so we can really get at them in the next waves. Men. Each X marks one nuclear bomb, with yields ranging from 50 kilotons to 25 megatons.
Why isn't there a border between Russia and China on this map?
We don't distinguish between the two here at SAC. We target it all as one big communist bloc. Our computers have no way of distinguishing between the two. Now, phase 2 of our operation. The aircraft already on airborne alert missions over the United States and North America would be the next to reach their targets. Men? Our targeting order goes according to the importance assigned to the target and our probability of destroying the target in our first wave. All targets must have at least a 75% chance of being destroyed. 202 must be destroyed at 97%, 400 at 93%, 592 at 90%, and 715 at 80%. We've got to be sure of these things, especially with the bigger bombs. You see this target outside Moscow? We are hitting it with a 4.5 megaton bomb. But for insurance, we're also going to throw in a 1 megaton just in case the big boy doesn't work.
The more targets you have, the more bombs and bombers you want.
Now you're talking, Mr. Secretary.
Where are you getting these figures?
Our state-of-the-art IBM computers calculate these. Our intelligence officers make sure that we get the right numbers.
I know how computers work. I've worked with computer statistics since World War II, and I'm not quite sure your figures are accurate.
We know what we're doing. Now then, our next wave comes from our bombers stationed in Germany and the Mediterranean region. Oh, and by the way, Mr. Secretary, in case you were wondering, I hope you don't have any friends in Albania, because there's a radar station there on our flight path, and we're gonna hit it. Go ahead then, men!
How many bombs are we dropping on Moscow?
23. 40 megatons worth. And before you ask, we're dropping 9 on Leningrad and 18 on Kaliningrad. Altogether, our target receives about an average of 2.2 megatons.
Hiroshima was destroyed with 16.5 kilotons.
And this time, we're not taking any chances. We are dropping about 3,560 bombs on 1,450 designated ground zeros. Our next wave comes from Japan and Western Europe, our bases in the United Kingdom especially. Men! And our last wave, consisting of B-47s and B-52s launched from our SAC bases here in the United States. Men! You having fun yet, Mr. Secretary? And now, the piece de resistance, our totals. This chart measures the fatalities in the USSR from radioactive fallout. We don't include blast damage in our figures because, well, it's just too fucking hard to measure. This axis shows deaths and the horizontal one shows time, hours to weeks. There are about 175 million people in the Soviet Union. In a few weeks, about 100 million of them, they'll be dead from fallout. The next chart, men. This chart shows the same thing, only in China. There's about 600 million people in China, give or take. By the time we're done with them, 300 million all be dead from fallout.
Are there any options where we don't hit China?
Well, yeah. I suppose we could do that, but I hope nobody comes up with one, because it would really fuck up the plan.
Certainly you've considered the effects of radiation on our NATO allies in Europe. Our allies in Japan, neutral countries in the Mideast and Africa.
Yes, of course. In Western Europe, it could be around 100 million, depending on which way the wind blows.
On which way the wind blows?
Yes, sir, that's how wind works. Certainly our weapons can be a hazard to ourselves as well as our enemy.
Is this your only plan?
Yes, Mr. Secretary, it is. This is all coordinated so our bombers will meet up with their refueling tankers at the right moment and to stop interference. We don't want any of our boys over top a bomb when it goes off. If we change the flight paths of even one bomber, it'd ruin the whole thing. It's like one big ballet, to put it in terms you might understand.
Well, what about the wind? How do you predict that? Couldn't that affect the times the bombers would get to their targets and lead to interference?
Don't worry. We've got that accounted for. That's just about it then, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for stopping by.
$275 million in China and Soviet Union, 100 million in Eastern Europe, 100 in Finland, Sweden, Austria, Afghanistan, India, Japan, 100 million in Western Europe, 600 million, 100 Holocausts.
Mom, are we Jewish?
What?
Am I Jewish?
No, you're not Jewish. You come from a long line of Catholics. Where did you ever get an idea like that?
Elie Wiesel was on TV the other night.
Who's that?
You know the author? Oh, I forgot you don't read.
Who was he on? Carson? Cavett?
Oh, well, he was on a discussion panel. It came on after the day after.
After what? I can't believe you watched that movie. No more television. How dare you disobey your mother? Did you forget what I told you? What we agreed upon years ago?
Mom, you should watch it.
Hell, I'd rather die in a war than watch it.
At least let me say what I was saying before.
Why would I care about this?
He has a lot to say. He survived the Holocaust. He had family killed by the Nazis, his people. He said something that I can't stop thinking about. He said the whole world is Jewish now in the nuclear age. He said we all live facing the same unknown, the same fears. We all live facing total extinction. We're all terrified like they were. I had to read his book, Night, in school when we learned about the Holocaust. Did you ever read that? Most people didn't pay attention. They just made horrible jokes about the people who died and about Hitler. But I always wondered what it must have been like for his family, his people. And now I think I do. I feel like I'm Jewish. I know that's a really weird thing to say and that doesn't make any sense, but I do.
You're not Jewish.
I think Elie Wiesel has a point.
He was making a comment, a metaphor, if you will. He didn't mean it literally.
I don't
Being
know.
scared doesn't make you Jewish.
I think he was talking literally. I'm worried it'll happen any moment. I'm worried they're gonna come and get me right now. Every time I see a bright flash or a light turns on and I don't recognize what it is, for a split second, I think that's it. I lay awake at night and stare at the plains, the sky. I can't stop looking. We live right next door, Mom. I feel like at any moment we could all be taken away, murdered in bright daylight, no way to stop it.
Well, that sounds very irrational, Kate. You shouldn't be thinking like that.
I can't help it. Do you think you can pass it on from generation to generation?
Being Jewish? Yes, that's what makes you Jewish.
No. I mean being scared. Maybe they pass it on to their children, not because they want to, but because they have to. All that fear, all that terror, despair, their whole world gone. Where else does it go? Maybe they have no choice but to be scared.
I don't think it works like that. There's a whole lot more to it than that.
I think being born now is the same.
I disagree. You believe in one God. The Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things seen and unseen. That makes you not Jewish. You're not. And don't ever talk like that again. Oh, if your father heard the way that you were talking.
You wouldn't understand anyway.
How was your trip?
We have got to do everything in our power to make sure that plan is never implemented.
Is that bad?
Their plan is to wipe out Russia and China at the outset of war. Hundreds of millions.
And we call ourselves the human race. Is there any room for flexibility?
Not one iota. If we fight a general war with Russia, it will happen. That can never happen. Some of the guys at RAND, they have this idea about counterforce, hitting military targets instead of cities at the beginning of the war. We might be able to then hold off on a catastrophic full exchange.
Draft me plans for limited war options and fighting a nuclear war. We need more options. We need to get through to SAC, especially if we might be getting into this by the end of the year. You hear what Khrushchev said?
Withdraw from Berlin by the end of the year or be forced out.
It'll be a cold winter. We've got to find a way out of this without triggering general war.
Mr. President, did you know that Ike sent out a letter to all commanders telling them that in emergency situations they could launch nuclear war without your authority?
I did, Bob. And I'm not going to change it.
Why not?
They'd crucify me. They wouldn't take an order I gave seriously again.
I have it on good word that this delegation business goes down further than just the commanders. I have a man from RAND working for me, Mr. Daniel Ellsberg. Just got back from the Pacific. He says Admiral Felt has delegated the authority to launch to commanders and officers below him. And there's no locks on those weapons. Anybody could launch unauthorized at any time.
I'm not going to undo what the great General Felt was right. But they've still got to know that I am the only one with the ultimate authority to start a war. Not that we ever could. See to it that we get locks on those things.
Mr. President, there is no missile gap. The Air Force numbers? Bogus. Guess how many they really have?
100.
4.
4.
4 missiles.
Which means all the reasoning for more bombers and missiles is bullshit. I want a list of options on how to respond to Berlin outside of a nuclear war plan. Maybe something involving conventional weapons instead of just the nuclear ones. We've got to figure this thing out.
Yes, Mr. President.
Good evening. 7 weeks ago tonight, I returned from Europe to report my meeting with Premier Khrushchev and the others. His grim warnings about the future of the world, his subsequent speeches and threats which he and his agents have launched, and the increase in Soviet military budget that have been announced, have all prompted a series of decisions by the administration and a series of consultations with the members of the NATO organization. In Berlin, as you recall, he intends to bring to an end, with the stroke of a pen, first, our legal rights to be in West Berlin, and secondly, our ability to make good on the commitment to the 2 million free people of that city. That we cannot permit. We do not want to fight, but we have fought before. And others in earlier times have made the same dangerous mistake of assuming that the West was too selfish, too soft, too divided to resist invasions of freedom in other lands. Those who threaten to unleash the forces of war over a dispute in West Berlin should recall the words of an ancient philosopher. A man who causes fear cannot be free from fear. So long as the communists insist on preparing to end themselves unilaterally our rights in West Berlin, our commitment to its people, we must be prepared to defend those rights and those commitments. We will at all times be ready to talk, if talk will help. But we also must be ready to resist with force, if force is used upon us. Either alone would fail. Together, they can serve the cause of freedom and peace. We have another sober responsibility to recognize the possibilities of nuclear war in the missile age without our citizens knowing what they should do and where they should go if the bombs begin to fall would be a failure of responsibility. Tomorrow, I am requesting of the Congress now funds for the following immediate objectives: to identify and mark space in existing structures, public and private, that could be used for fallout shelters in case of an attack, to stock those shelters with food, water, and first aid kits and other minimum essentials for survival, to increase their capacity, to improve our air raid warning and fallout detection systems, including a new household warning system, which is now under development, and to take other measures that will be effective in an early date to save millions of lives if needed. Now, in the thermonuclear age, any misjudgment on either side about the intentions of the other could rain more devastation in several hours than has been wrought in all the wars of human history. Therefore, I, as President and Commander-in-Chief, and all of us as Americans, are moving through serious days. I shall bear this responsibility under our Constitution for the next 3.5 years. But I am sure that we all, regardless of our occupations, will do our very best for our country and for our cause. For all of us want to see our children grow up in a country at peace and in a world where freedom endures. In these days and weeks, I ask for your help and for your advice. All of us, I know, love our country, and we shall all do our best to serve. In meeting my responsibilities in these coming months as president, I need your goodwill. I need your support. And above all, your prayers. Thank you. Good night.
I'm worried, Mother.
About what?
About Berlin. Kennedy said if Khrushchev pushes out of West Berlin, it could be nuclear war.
That's why he's urging us to build shelters. That's why we're here, to be prepared, not out of panic.
You can't.
We can't give up. We've got to show our resolve. That's what Kennedy wants. America has to show that it is willing to fight for what it believes in. That's what I did during the last war while your father was in the Pacific. We bucked up.
But we don't need a shelter.
Why not? It was on the cover of Life magazine. It wouldn't cost us much at all. We could dig it right here. Build a room shaped like a pipe. If we don't need it, we'll be prepared. We'll use it for storage.
I won't let you.
I'm your mother. You don't get to make these decisions. We're building one, and that's final.
SAC is right next door. It's one big giant target. They have planes up 24 hours a day. You really think it would make a difference?
That's exactly the kind of thinking the Russians want us to have. You can't let it get to you. Otherwise, you give up.
Now who's being irrational?
It's what my mother has always said. Life is great if you don't weaken. If you weaken to fear, to communism, suddenly our lives change completely.
They already have!
We're building this shelter, and I don't want to hear another peep from you. If you block me any further, a nuclear war will be the last thing you have to worry about.
That isn't funny, Mother.
I'm serious.
Do you know what we ask each other at school?
What do you mean?
Parents always ask us, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's the standard question. But we don't say that. We've developed our own variation. We say, what do you want to be if you grow up?
There will always be dangers in life, Emma. It's a part of growing up. But we can fight them. Remember when you were scared to death of polio? And now we have 2 vaccines.
That's different, Mother. We say if.
I want you to be safe.
If you want me to be safe, then go over to the base and tell the general to stop flying his nuclear bombs over my head.
Go to your room.
Donna hasn't seen her father in weeks. They live on constant alert.
Get out of my sight.
Mother, you're being irrational.
I don't want to hear it. Get out of my sight.
They've gone sissy. Have you read what McNamara sent?
They're trying to stop us, sir.
All this talk of limited options, counterforce, no cities. They want to change how we target? Tell them to come to office, see what happens then.
Washington sent us these new locks, and they instructed us to put them on the weapons.
They don't want us to win. They really don't even want to fight. We'll put the locks on, all right. But make sure all the codes are set to 000000000. If any squad leader opposes or comes up with their own code, you tell them to come talk to me.
Yes, sir.
We've got to be ready to knock them out at any moment, okay? I have some changes to our airborne alert mission. I've got something that'll make the Russians wet their pants. We're gonna send our airborne alert teams right up to the Russian border, fully armed, locked and loaded. They wait there in their fail-safe positions for a few hours to see if we're gonna start the war today. We brief them before they go with a go code that we would send out in the event that we want them to go. And if they don't get a code after a certain time, then they can come back to the base. I want 60 sorties a day. We're gonna scare those bastards.
Yes, sir.
I also want a plane with an alternate command center airborne 24 hours a day, staffed with a full general. That way, if they somehow hit us early, we'd still be able to coordinate our attacks from the sky. We can't let the Russians think that they can knock out our ability to retaliate just by hitting off it.
Yes, sir.
The time window, it just keeps shrinking. We used to have hours before they had missiles. Now it's just a few minutes, so we gotta get as much of a head start on the fuckers as we can.
Sir, we found them. The Soviets are building 2,000, hell, maybe 5,000 ICBMs. You gotta take a look at these reconnaissance photos. You might think this looks like some medieval imperial tower, but they're storing missiles in it. Look at the spire. All this emphasis on them being an agrarian society, all their talk, it's just an excuse for them to build more silos. We're letting them build missile silos under our noses.
We need 10,000! It's time those communists felt the might of the Strategic Air Command. The United States will never take its guard down until communism is dead! We are on continuous alert from now until the end.
How was school today? Kate, you're not going to answer me? You know I don't like it when you refuse to talk to me, Catherine.
Do you think people outside of the nuclear bullseye are as scared?
What did you say?
Like the people in Australia. They don't have nuclear weapons. They don't host ours. They don't threaten to use them. Do you think their people are less worried all the time?
You stop this talk right now.
Don't you ever wonder what really goes on at the base? What they really say, what they really
stop
think?
This instant! I don't think about it.
I don't believe you. Rows and rows of B-52s. They say we're living in a window of vulnerability.
If you don't drop it right now, you're out. Do you hear me?
It's all anyone at school talks about. How being right here next to Sac, we'd all be vaporized instantly. Do you know how long it takes a Pershing II missile to reach the Soviet Union?
We don't need to be talking about this.
8 minutes.
We don't live in Europe.
They're deploying them to West Germany as we speak. Not enough time for the Russians to respond. If they think we might be about to launch, they would probably launch their missiles on warning.
Stop it! Stop it! I'm not listening! I'm not listening! I'm not listening!
Maybe it's easier on the people in Moscow, though.
What?
They don't have time to worry. No time to respond. Just death. That might be easier than what we'd have to deal with over here.
You have a sick mind.
Who's sick? Me? Or the people over there flying around with 14,000 nuclear bombs? What would you do if there was an attack and we were separated?
No.
Like I was at school and you were at home.
No.
I don't mean for survival, for the few minutes before. How would you respond knowing we were apart, that you couldn't see me?
I don't want to talk about this.
I know you don't. Would you be scared? Don't you think of me at all?
I think that we need to get you therapy.
What do I need therapy for?
You're mad with fear.
And it's healthy to live in a country with 20,000 nuclear weapons. It's healthy to live in a country that prepares to fight a nuclear war. I won't go. There's only one way I would go.
And what's that?
You go too.
I don't need therapy. You're the one who stares at the sky at night.
You're just as scared as I am. You just won't admit it.
That's not true.
Then I'm not going to therapy. You may as well save your money and not stuff me into the car to go.
You must have gotten it from my mother. She was bomb crazy after she built that fallout shelter.
What?
God. Kate. I'm sorry.
It's a fallout shelter?
Kate, just let me explain.
There's a fallout shelter in my backyard?
Kate! Kate, no! Come back! Come back! Come back!
Mr. President, take a look at these latest U-2 reconnaissance images over Cuba.
What am I looking at?
We believe these are medium-range and intermediate-range ballistic missile bases installed by the Soviet Union. We have found 6. We expect to find more with more photos over the next 2 days.
Are they operational?
Some of them likely are, yes, Mr. President. The MRBMs have a maximum range of about 1,100 miles, and the IRBMs can reach almost twice as far, putting all of North and South America in reach.
God. You can't do that to me! What are my options?
Mr. President, once we got a more complete picture of all the sites on the island, we can knock all the missiles and Soviet military assets out with airstrikes, with a possible invasion in the following days. If we're going to take military action, though, Mr. President, sooner is better, because every day they get these sites together, there's more of a risk they will be able to strike us. If we wait until many of these are operational, we will be playing with fire. They're mobile field missiles, which means if we give them any warning of imminent strike beforehand, they could easily hide them or fire them off at our coasts.
How can you seriously consider an airstrike if you think some of the nuclear missiles are operational?
What other choices do we have?
And how could we be sure we get them all? There is another option, one that doesn't involve direct military action.
Yes.
What about a blockade, Mr. President?
A blockade.
Yes. We stop all Soviet ships heading for Cuba and search for offensive weapons. We continue our surveillance of Cuba openly and declare that we would be willing to take further action against Soviet Union if Cuba made any moves against us. Meanwhile, we mobilize a possible invasion force and put SAC on alert.
They already have forces ready. They could bomb Florida with the MiGs and there wouldn't be much we could do about it. Probably with conventional weapons.
What if they carry a nuclear weapon?
I don't think they would do that, unless they are prepared for general nuclear war over Cuba, which they wouldn't want to trigger.
I think the blockade strategy is our best bet for not triggering general war right away.
Mr. President, this is a grave mistake. This blockade will lead us right into war. If you go through with this, it will be just like the appeasement of Hitler at Munich.
If we attack Cuba, what's to say the Russians won't go ahead and invade Berlin as a kind of trade? I don't want NATO to think that we're a bunch of cowboys who bombed Cuba and lost Berlin.
I think the use of force is our only sound option.
President is right. The risks would just be too high for escalation.
Escalation? This whole thing is escalation. We've got to take everything out, and we've got to do it now. With this plan, we will lose. Just like your Michigan always loses to my Ohio State at the football game. I don't think the Russians would lift a finger over Cuba if the United States shows its willingness to fight back and take action. We cannot let ourselves be vulnerable like this.
Vulnerable? We're already vulnerable to Russian ICBMs. It doesn't make a difference if they blow us up with these or the missiles in Russia. This isn't a military issue. This is a political issue that should try to be resolved without military force. But Mr. President?
Yes.
What do you think the odds are of this thing going nuclear?
Between 1 and 3 and even. We're going to do the blockade starting Sunday. I'll prepare to address the nation. Put SAC into DEFCON 3. Call up the reservists. Hang on tight. Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup in the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. For many years, both the Soviet Union and the United States have deployed strategic nuclear weapons with great care, never upsetting the precarious status quo, which ensured that these weapons would not be used in the absence of some vital challenge. Nevertheless, American citizens have become adjusted to living daily on the bullseye of Soviet missiles located inside the USSR or in submarines. But this secret, swift, extraordinary buildup of communist missiles is a deliberately provocative and unjustified change to that status quo, which cannot be accepted by this country. If our courage and our commitments are ever to be trusted again by either friend or foe, we will not prematurely or unnecessarily risk the cost of worldwide nuclear war, in which even the fruits of victory would be ashes in our mouths. But neither will we shrink from that risk at any time. It must be faced. To halt this offensive buildup, a strict quarantine on all offensive missiles and military equipment into Cuba is being initiated. All ships of any kind bound for Cuba from whatever nation of port will be, if found to contain cargoes of offensive military weapons be turned back. It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launches from Cuba against the nation of the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union. I call upon Chairman Khrushchev to halt and eliminate this clandestine, reckless, and provocative threat to world peace and to stable relations between our two nations. I call upon him further to abandon this course of world domination and to join in a historic effort to end this perilous arms race and to transform the history of man. He has an opportunity now to move the world back from the abyss of destruction by returning to his government's own words that it has no need in stationing missiles outside of its own territory and withdrawing these weapons from Cuba, by refraining from any action which will widen or deepen the present crisis, and then by participating in a search for peaceful and permanent solutions. We have no wish for war with the Soviet Union, but we are a peaceful people who desire to live in peace with all other peoples. But it is difficult to settle or even discuss these problems in an atmosphere of intimidation. That is why this latest Soviet threat, or any threat which has been made either independently or in response to our actions this week, must and will be met with determination. My fellow citizens, let no one doubt that this is a difficult and dangerous effort in which we have set out. No one can see precisely what course it will take or what costs it will incur. Many months of sacrifice and self-discipline lie ahead. Months in which our patience and our will be tested. Months in which many threats and denunciations will keep us aware of our dangers. But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing. The cost of freedom is always high, and Americans have always paid it. And one path we shall never choose is that of surrender or submission. Our goal is not the victory of might, but the vindication of right. Not peace at the expense of freedom, but both peace and freedom here in this hemisphere, and we hope around the world. God willing, that goal will be achieved. Thank you, and good night.
This is it, boys! This is what we've been preparing for!
Sir, the president has ordered us to DEFCON 3.
DEFCON 3, eh? We'll raise him one. Put him at DEFCON 2, just one step away, and put this alert change out in the open for the Soviets to see. I want him to know exactly what we're doing.
Sir, that goes against our procedure.
That is an order. I want 1,500 bombers on alert. I want an eighth of the fleet on continuous airborne alert. One lands, another takes off. Disperse some of our forces to civilian airports and airfields. We made deals with them for a reason. They're not going to catch us off guard. It is time to finish this.
I'm scared, Mother.
Life is great if you don't weaken. Stay strong.
The bombs could be on their way right now, and we wouldn't even know it.
You don't trust the president?
Do you see how many planes they have up over there? The sky is filled with them, hundreds of bombs. God knows where.
Calm down. Now I have made the decision that we're going to sleep in the shelter tonight.
No.
Even yourself said it was serious, and I don't disagree.
I don't believe this. You get on my case for panicking and being hysterical, and now you want me to sleep in a bomb shelter.
Just for the night, just in case.
I'm not going.
I'm doing this for you, Emma. This is about our family, our survival.
I don't want to survive in a world like that.
You and your defeatism. Who have you been listening to? I swear to God, after I'm dead, if you get rid of this shelter, I'll never forgive you.
What are you talking about?
This is my gift to you. Your future, your survival. And if you want to scream and throw it away after I'm dead, be my guest, but you'll be throwing away a part of your mother.
I'm not going.
I'm not going to give in to your panic. Now get in the shelter or I'll drag you in.
I don't want to go down there. I won't survive down there. Let me go.
Shut up. Shut up. Get in here. We've got to make sure civilization survives.
Gentlemen, we received 2 letters from Khrushchev last night. The first said that he would remove the missiles from Cuba if we made a public declaration not to invade. His second, however, struck an entirely different tone, much more hostile. He demanded that we withdraw all of our IRBMs from Turkey as in exchange for the ones in Cuba.
Mr. President, you can't seriously consider the Turkey proposal. If we did that, it would completely shatter NATO. None of them would ever trust us again, that we traded their security for our own.
I don't know, Bob. I think anybody looking at this trade from a rational point of view would see it as an extremely fair deal.
Mr. President, the Turks love the things. They think of them as their missiles. It would be unthinkable.
Mr. President, some urgent news. We just received word from SAC last night that one of their U-2s over Cuba was shot down a few hours ago. The pilot was killed.
That bastard. How can he send me these letters and then just shoot down one of our boys? It's really tying our hands here.
That, I know I recommended the blockade, Mr. President, but we simply have to take military action soon if this doesn't resolve itself, even with all the risks. I say you've got to be ready to strike Cuba tomorrow morning.
Mr. President, you said that any attack by Cuba or the Soviet Union upon the United States would be met with a full retaliatory response. Where is it?
We just got these letters from Khrushchev. We might reinforce our blockade, give another warning. If that doesn't work, we'll respond with force.
You are being weak, Mr. President. Each day this drags on, the credibility of the United States to defend its interests goes down the toilet. This is it, Mr. President. This is our last chance to disarm the communists once and for all. Their window of vulnerability is going to close by the end of the year. The moment the Soviets respond, we need to give them everything.
We can't respond with force just yet. We've got to try our options. We got to keep our options open. But Bob, if he doesn't agree to our proposal within 48 hours, we may have to get into an invasion. I'll tell State to send this kind of warning to Khrushchev. We can't stop our flights over Cuba, but they can't shoot any more down. And those missiles can't stay.
You can't be afraid to fight, Mr. President. Peace through strength.
Yes, Mr. President. We can't let these things stay off our coast. We can't allow ourselves to be vulnerable.
Oh, Catherine! Catherine! I'm so sorry. Please don't do that again.
I'm sorry, Mother.
It's okay. I understand.
You understand?
Yes, I do. I never told you.
I knew it,
I never wanted you to know.
of course.
I'm just as scared as you are, Kate.
You lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis. You lied to me. You said you were never scared.
Oh, Kate, I didn't want you to have to grow up like this. I didn't want you to have to grow up as terrified as I was. And I thought that if I could just protect you, take on everything for you, that you wouldn't have to grow up scared. But I failed. I failed.
You didn't fail.
But you're just as scared as I was.
That's not your fault.
Yes, it is.
I'm only staying if we get rid of that fallout shelter.
You want me to get rid of it?
Yes. I won't live in a house with one.
Okay. We'll fill it with soil. Thank you, Kate. I've been trying to get up the courage to get rid of that thing for years.
Mother,
Yes?
if there was a war tomorrow and we were separated, what would you do?
Well, I would think of you. I would pray that I was with you. Imagine I was. And I would hope that you would do the same.
Of course I would.
Thank you.
I've been worrying about that for years. Mom, tell me, do you really think it'll happen?
Oh, I don't know. Who knows?
Those men over there do.
Those monsters.
That phrase Grandma had, life is great if you don't weaken. I'm not sure she was right.
Isn't the sky beautiful today?